Hey, MMT followers, Christina Fuges with MoldMaking Technology back for another quick MMT chat. My guest today is Michael Guckes, who is the Chief Economist for Gardner Business Intelligence out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Christina, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. All right, so I wanted to bring Michael on to share some insight into how we shall call it the positive trend that we're seeing with the Moldmaking Index over the past 3 to 4 months. As all of us are continuing to move through the impact of COVID-19, but especially since the most recent index is registering the second strongest expansion since the second quarter of 2019, or the strongest expansion since the second quarter of 2019. But first, Michael, to get started, I think you need to give everybody who's listening, just in case they're not familiar, give us a snapshot of what the index is.
Sure, Christina. So the way that the index works is we send out surveys every month to mold making manufacturers across the country, and we do it for other manufacturing disciplines. But within mold making, we're basically asking them, how are different business activities doing each month as compared to the month prior? And so things like new orders activity, production activity, exports, things like supplier deliveries, employment, and backlogs. We're asking them about these things and more. But those 6 things I just mentioned, those are the ones that we calculate up. We sum up the number of people who are saying that, say for example, new orders was better this month. There was more of them this month than there were last month, right? And so they would get one value counted towards them. If someone said that their new orders were, for example, less than last month's, then they would get a different value. We total all these up and we take the average of all 6 of these and bring it together. And that's how you get the mold making technology index value. And so it's one of the few, maybe the only index that is out there that is being collected monthly for mold makers to help them understand what is happening in their industry. And so that's the power of it, is it's giving manufacturers an awareness of their industry that you're just not going to find anywhere else.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about the Moldmaking Index. So the biggest takeaway for me from the latest report is that the index moved strongly higher due to higher readings, right, across all the business activity components that we look at. And that includes new orders reporting the greatest expansion. So can you break down what are we seeing right now and why?
Absolutely. Christina, here on the screen, I've got for you, for example, production and new orders activity. And these are really the ones that I like to focus on. They tend to be the bellwethers among all of the other business activity types that we track. Everything really revolves around what's happening with new orders. That drives your production, right? That drives your ordering of supplier deliveries. That will drive your employment. So it's so important when we look at our data that we're really monitoring new orders and export activity. So in this case here, as you were saying, right, we're seeing here that new orders has hit really close to a 2-year high in terms of the proportion that is of mold makers telling us through the survey that they're seeing more new orders in September than they were in August, right? And we haven't seen that proportion of people tell us that going all the way back to mid-2019, as you were saying. And then production is here in orange. And the important thing to understand, of course, is that these 2 things, of course, move together. As molders have more orders, of course, they're going to produce more. And so there's usually a very, very small lag, if any, between the 2. But these are, again, some of the more important drivers of the index that you're seeing here.
Thanks, Michael. So, Michael, what component of the index recovered the last and why?
So typically, and this is looking back across our 10 years of data here, typically employment is the last one that recovers, right? And the reasons for that are pretty obvious, right? It's expensive to hire people. It's expensive to train them. There's an investment that molders have to make, right? That they don't have to make with a lot of other types of investments, right? So employment typically lags around 3 to 5 months. The interesting thing about that, though, is that in this particular recession, this pandemic recession, which is not like any other recession that we've seen in a long, long time, things have been moving so much faster. There was a big shock to manufacturing production and new orders. You look at the March-April time period, our new orders data basically says just about everything stopped, right?
Right.
But the rebound has been incredibly sharp, right? And mold makers have been telling us that they're really at the forefront of that rebound. They're doing better than any of the other manufacturing disciplines that we track right now. So that's great news for them. We are seeing, though, a really sharp rebound on the employment side. So it could be that, because what caused the slowdown was a legislative change. Once those restrictions were eased, people could come right back. And I think that that's true with a lot of the data that we're seeing, is that for the most part, because what caused the downturn was legislated, once those legislative restrictions were removed, we saw people really snap back.
Yep.
And so that's been really interesting. That's been one of the unique things about this rebound, is just the speed at which it has already come about.
Awesome. So lastly, before I let you go, moving forward, do you have any advice or recommendations outside of your monthly mold making index of ways for mold builders to stay on top of industry data that you provide, or even outside sources that you rely on? Can you talk about that a little bit?
There are a couple of different ways that your viewers can use our actionable insights to drive their businesses. The easiest way, of course, is just to read MoldMaking Technology magazine, and in the back, of course, we have our monthly GBI article. Those, of course, take time to get into print. So the best thing to do is, of course, go to your website and use the GBI data that's posted much more quickly on the website, especially right now when everything is just moving so fast in the economy. Secondly, you could also look at our data subscription options. We have one, it's called the GBI Snapshot, and it's made specifically for smaller shops, et cetera. What we hope and think is a really good price point, and it allows your readers to have some customization around the data that they're going to receive. So we can tailor the data that they get, and they would also get the numbers. You don't just get the charts. And so that's another way to do it. We have more expensive data subscriptions from there, but really that GBI Snapshot product is awesome. You're paying roughly $100 a month, but you're going to get a lot of great insights. But furthermore, one of the things I would want to let your readers know is that our data is only as good as your responses. So if you're receiving our GBI surveys, please fill those out. The more people who respond, the better the data quality is going to be, the better the analytics will be, and hopefully the better those insights will be, so that you can turn around and have an even more successful shop than what you have now. But the quality of the data is everything, and that really is dependent upon your viewers responding to those surveys.
Yeah, and this is an awesome community. So we've always valued their participation. So I was going to ask you to do a call out to that. So I appreciate you doing that. So thank you, Michael. Well said. Thank you for your time today. And for everybody watching out there, for everything mold making, go to moldmakingtechnology.com. For Gardner Intelligence, visit gardnerintelligence.com. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay informed, and stay inspired.